Hey everyone, thank you for coming back, and if you're new here, welcome. This is going to be a bit of a different video than I usually do, and I want to preface this by saying that I am not an expert in anything and I am just a homeschooling mom, regular person, but I do want to talk about some homeschooling red flags that I have personally seen, and this is just my experience and my opinion, but I think it's something good to be aware of, whether you're new to homeschooling or you've been doing homeschooling for a while. And so I have broken up my slideshow into 3 different areas that I want to discuss. The first part is co-ops and groups, some red flags about that, legal contracts, and political recruitment. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about are co-ops and groups. Now I'm using the slideshow to help me organize my thoughts. You can read along if you'd like. So the first thing is the group leader. So a red flag about your co-op or maybe a group, Facebook group that you go to, you want to look at who is leading the group and what their personality is like. So a red flag would be someone with a controlling personality or controlling behavior. I understand leaders, they need to organize a group, set up meeting times and places, but really look at the person's personality. If they try to control what other people in the group are doing, or they want to control what you are thinking. And so this leads me to my next point, group hive mentality. So what do I mean about that? Sometimes in homeschool groups or homeschool co-ops, I have noticed a group mentality, a group thinking. I kind of call it like the hive mentality. And the group leader wants everybody on the same page. Now, I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but it's like everybody has to think the same thing. And if you're not thinking the same way as the rest of the group, sometimes in my experience, when I have asked questions or was a bit critical of things that the group leader or what the group was doing, they didn't like that. And so this is definitely a red flag. If a group leader has a controlling personality, you see that a group has hive mentality where everyone has to think the same, or they don't like it when you ask questions or are critical of the group leader especially, or of the group. The next thing is idealization of an educational method or pushing a specific curriculum. So I have personally seen this in a few different ways, but one thing is when you talk to perhaps the leader of your co-op or a group leader, and they say, well, this is the only way that you should be homeschooling. This is the correct way to homeschool. And then they might go into a sales pitch where they're trying to push curriculum onto you. And the curriculum that they like, they're trying to get you to buy the curriculum that they like. And I say it's a sales pitch because I can't say for sure, but maybe they're receiving a kickback in some way. They're receiving some sort of commission if you buy the curriculum. And I personally do not think there's only one right way to teach homeschooling. That's just my opinion. But, you know, if you really feel that a certain way, a certain educational model is the correct way to teach, that's good. That's fine. But don't allow the leader of your co-op or the leader of a group that you're in to tell you that that's the only way that you can homeschool, and you're not allowed to use any other curriculum. You have to use that curriculum or else. That is a red flag to me. And honestly, sometimes I feel like with the sales pitch of curriculum, they're just grifting. They are grifters. They're trying to make money off of you. And it's sad to say, but I think that sometimes mothers, parents, they're targeted because people know, like, you want the best for your child, and so they'll tell you, well, this is the best, and this is really the only way that you should be teaching your child. But honestly, they're just grifting. And then that leads me into my next point, is restricting access to information. So I've also seen this where a group leader may say, you cannot or you should not be teaching your child X, Y, Z. And I really have an issue with this because I think information is good and I think information is important. And I would say be aware of people or groups who are trying to restrict your access to information. Now, if you have a belief or an opinion and you do not want to teach your child something, fine. Okay, go ahead, teach your family the way that you wish. But what I think is a red flag is when other people are trying to control your access to information, when other people are saying, no, you are not allowed to teach XYZ. Just be careful of that. I think that, you know, the more you know, the more you grow. And they say knowledge is power. So be cautious of people who want to restrict information. The next topic is toxic competition. Now, I have definitely seen this in co-ops and groups where the group leader causes unnecessary competition. They try to see who knows what, who knows more than the other, which parent is teaching better. And it really fuels, I feel, some bad blood in the co-op or the group, and it's unnecessary. And I think it's another way for the group leader, it's a control mechanism where people can kind of get on the group leader's good side. And it's also sort of, in a weird way, like shaming the parents or the kids who aren't achieving as much as others. And I just think it just makes for a really bad environment, in my opinion. So I would say red flag, be cautious if you see toxic competition. So continuing on with co-ops and groups, asking too much from you. So I have definitely experienced this. and I have seen this and I have heard this from other homeschooling mothers. What I mean by asking too much from you, they're asking too much of your time, they're asking too much of your resources, things like that. That is a red flag for me. And under this topic, I had written unbalanced relationships. So what do I mean there? I mean that they are taking more from you than what you're getting out of the relationship. And also by unbalanced relationship, I mean something that, for example, I have a story where I was in a group and a new mom came to the group. She had a couple of kids and she had a baby on the way. So I had met her briefly, very, very briefly, one time. I had spoken with her for 5 minutes. And then the following week, our group leader asked everyone if we would be willing to do a food chain. I'm not sure what you call it, food train, where you make food for somebody who has health issue. In this instance, she was going to have a baby. So she wanted to set up a food train. And it sounds like a lovely thing. But it wasn't just that the group leader was asking, it was more like she was asking passive aggressively, almost demanding that people in the group make food for this new member. And I have to add that the new member, she didn't ask for anybody to do this for her. And this is where the red flag comes in, because the group leader said something that kind of set the red flag off. She said, "Wouldn't it be great if we did this for her? I wish that somebody had done this for me when I was going to have my kids." And so in a weird way, it kind of felt like she was a bit bitter that nobody had done this for her. So she wanted to set this up, even though the new mom, she didn't ask any of us to do that. And I say this is an unbalanced relationship because I had only met her one time and met her for 5 minutes. And, they already wanted me to start cooking for this person. And it wasn't just like make one meal. It was, we had to cook for a whole month worth of meals for her. And that, I felt like that was just too much. Okay, and so the next thing is disciplining other people's children. Disciplining other people's children. I had to say it twice. Or asking you to discipline their child. Now, this is also something that I experienced, and it set off major red flags immediately. And I was not the only one in the group who had these feelings. So let me discuss what happened. So I was a part of a group, and the group leader had 4 children. And at one point, she had discussed to the group that, by the way, we were like an outdoor group. So we would meet up and we would go hiking. But at one point, she met with group members and she said, I would like you guys, if you see my kids acting up, I would like you to discipline them, to punish them if they're doing something wrong or they're doing something bad. And she said this in front of the whole group and in front of her own children. And I thought that was really strange, and it made me very uncomfortable. I did not feel comfortable disciplining other people's children. And she didn't say, hey, if one of my kids are acting up, could you please come and let me know and I'll deal with it. No, she literally wanted us to discipline her children. And so anyhow, later on, not during that meeting, I believe that other parents brought up their concern and they said to her, we aren't comfortable disciplining your child, or they may have said, we're not going to do that. And I had told her, I'm not going to discipline your child. And so anyhow, long story short, we ended up getting into a chat on the phone, and she said, it has been brought to my attention that people aren't comfortable disciplining my children. Let's talk about that. And nobody in the group chat wanted to say anything about that. So that's a huge red flag. Now, there were people in the group, they didn't mind disciplining her children. And, maybe they had a closer relationship where they could do that. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that, and other people didn't either. And I definitely didn't feel comfortable with anybody disciplining my child. So, huge red flag, I would say, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the reason that I bring this up is because, there was a case last year, if you guys are familiar with it, with Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt. And Ruby Franke, if you're unfamiliar with the case, you can look it up online, but briefly I'll just tell you that she was somebody who was online on YouTube, and she was apparently a homeschooler. I don't know how long she did that, but it turned out to be a very bad case for her children, and I don't really want to get into it, but you can look it up online. And the woman who was a part of her group, who essentially was a group leader, her name was Jody Hildebrandt, and Ruby Franke, the mother of the children, allowed Jody Hildebrandt to, quote, discipline her children. And if you look at that case, I think everyone can agree that she did more than just discipline her children. So a huge red flag. I would definitely say, be careful, guys. Be careful of people who ask you to discipline their children and you don't know them very well, or they're saying they want to discipline your children, because unfortunately there are bad people out there who will do harm to you and your family and your children, and I don't want that to happen. And so that's why I think it's something people should be aware of and a possible red flag. The next thing is atypical or unconventional behavior of the kids and or parents. So, what do I mean by this? Atypical or unconventional behavior. So one thing is if you notice that kids are not acting as kids normally would, so maybe they are shouting at their parents, getting into argument with their parents in front of everyone, in the group. Now, I have witnessed this before, and at first you don't think much about it at all, because you think like, oh, well, kids are having a bad day or parents are having a bad day. But if you notice this is pretty frequent, kind of be aware. It may throw up a red flag, especially if kids are saying like they hate their parents in front of other people. So for example, I did witness this. A young child was saying to their mom, "I hate you," and he meant it, and he was very loud about it. And I told my husband much later, I said, at first I didn't think it was unusual, but I think back to when our daughter was a toddler and the way that she was, and I don't think she ever said that to us. And so if the children don't want to be around their parents, they're yelling at their parents, it could be a red flag, guys. So be aware. And then atypical behavior of the parents. So another thing that I experienced was a mother who I met who didn't let her children wear shoes. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, kids go barefoot a lot. Yeah, okay, it's one thing to have your kids go barefoot in your yard or in the car, or you're going to get, you're going to a pool, or you're going to get some ice cream or something. That's one thing. But this particular person, she did not allow her children to wear shoes, ever. And at first, when I met her, I just thought like, oh, okay, crunchy mama, she's doing the crunchy thing. I get it, And she would explain to everyone why she didn't allow her children to wear shoes. She said that, it was good for their feet or something like that, good for their health, something to that effect. But she never really said like where she was getting this information from. But again, she was a nice person. The kids didn't complain. They seemed okay. So, you just you don't think about it. But looking back at it much later, yeah, it was a bit atypical behavior, because the thing was, all of the children would go, and we would go on play dates to the park, or we would go hiking outside, and the kids were never wearing shoes. So they were on the playground without shoes, and they were hiking through the woods, guys, without shoes. And at one point, the mother did buy some sneakers for the oldest daughter, who I would say was about 8 or 9 years old. The daughter wanted a pair of shoes, so the mother bought her a pair of shoes, and they were sneakers, but they were closed-toed sneakers, but they were used, and they were really worn out, and the bottom was worn out, and the daughter was trying to wear the shoes. She had never worn shoes before in her life, according to what the mother had told us all, which again, atypical. But she had bought her daughter sneakers with laces, and so her daughter had to learn how to tie the laces and put the shoes on. And as you can imagine, it was a bit difficult for her. And thinking about it much later on, and also the daughter ended up saying that she didn't want to wear the shoes. But thinking about it much later on, I thought, that's unusual. Like, why wouldn't she start her off maybe with sandals, something that wouldn't be so hard to put on? And why did she purchase used shoes for her daughter? So you might say, oh, well, not everybody's fortunate. Maybe she couldn't buy new shoes. But they lived in quite a nice house, a 2-story house. They had 2 cars that looked, pretty nice. So they seemed like they could afford a new pair of shoes. And even if they couldn't afford a new pair of shoes, I just think, like, I can go to the Dollar Tree and get a pair of flip-flops for my daughter for $1.25. So thinking back on it, like, I'm still trying to understand why this person did that. So if you notice, like, the kids have worn clothing or worn shoes, it might be a red flag. I'm not saying that it is, and I'm not saying that this situation was, but it could be a red flag. The next thing, isolation from others. So I have also seen and heard this, that if you are in a co-op or a group, be aware of a group leader or other people in your group that say you should not socialize outside of the group or the homeschooling community. So I've heard people say they don't want their kids associating with public school kids, or they don't want their kids associating with anybody in a school, whether it's private school or public school. And I think, hey, if you don't want your kids associating with people, I totally understand. Obviously, you don't just want your kids associating with everybody, because there's kids doing bad stuff out there. But you kind of have to balance it out. And if you just don't want your kids hanging out with people from a public school or private school, that's up to you. Again, it's your decision. But what I'm saying is, be cautious of people who are trying to isolate you from others. Be cautious of people who are telling you you cannot socialize with people outside of this group or outside of this homeschool community. Red flag. And then to finish up with the co-op and groups, it could be a red flag if you notice that members abruptly leave. So you're in a group, you've made friends, you think things are going great, but all of a sudden people aren't showing up anymore and they've just kind of disappeared. Or maybe you ask, like, hey, what happened to so-and-so? And they say they're not a part of the group anymore. And what they mean is they're not allowed to be part of the group anymore. This could be a red flag, guys. Again, it kind of goes back to the group mentality, where if everybody's not on the same page, then, you're not a part of the group. Definitely could be a red flag. And something that I personally witnessed was that even the group that I was a part of for a short time, the group leader's own family was not part of the group. So the group leader had said her sister and her sister-in-law, she wanted to do homeschooling with them, and that they were going to come in and join the group and all this other stuff. And then later on, it turned out that the sister and the sister-in-law did not want to be part of homeschooling. Instead, they decided to put their children in school, and the group leader seemed upset about that. And I say it's a red flag. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's anything bad, but it could be a red flag because it made me wonder, like, why doesn't this person's own family want to be a part of the group? The next thing, legal contracts. I know that seems strange to be talking about legal contracts and homeschooling, and in my opinion, it is a bit strange and it could be a red flag. So if you ever experience a group demanding that you sign legal documents, just be cautious and think about, is it really necessary? So here's an example from my own experience. So I joined a group, a Facebook group for outdoor meetups, and I was a newly joined member. When I joined, unfortunately, the group leader and the assistant group leader both decided that they couldn't do it anymore and they needed to take some time away. And so somebody else stepped up and they said I could step in and lead the group. And the minute that this person started to lead the group, the very first thing she did was demand, not ask, demand that everybody sign a legal document that said she and the group is not responsible if your child gets injured. Now, this was just an outdoor meetup as far as I knew, where you just meet and you go hiking and you just hang out for a little bit, or you go to a playground and you guys hang out at the playground. In my personal opinion, I didn't think signing a legal document was necessary, and other people didn't either. And when that concern was voiced, the group leader said, if you don't sign this legal document, you're out of the group. You are kicked out of the group. You will not be coming to any group meetups, and you're also getting kicked off of the Facebook group. And so a lot of people did sign these legal documents, but a lot of people didn't. And I'm just saying this could be a red flag. I personally don't think that you should be signing any legal documents without really thinking it through first. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is political recruitment. So this could be a red flag. And when I talk about political recruitment, I'm talking that there's a couple, I could go a lot into this, but one thing is signing petitions and being hassled to listen to somebody's political views and being hassled to sign petitions. So an example of this, I was part of a Facebook group. It was a meetup group, and they would meet weekly at the same place. And anybody could go and be a part of this Facebook group and go to these meetups. Well, there was a woman who joined the Facebook group and joined the meetup, and she would come every week to the meetup. And she would have a petition, and she would go around to all of the parents and forcefully make them listen to what she had to say on some political issue. And she wanted people to sign her petitions, and she would get angry if people didn't want to listen to her, and she would get angry if people didn't want to sign her petitions. Well, because she kept showing up every week, it became an issue, and a lot of the other people in the group told the group leader, hey, we don't want to come to these group meetups because this person is constantly there wanting us to sign petitions. That's not what we're here for. And so the group leader did have to talk to this person and tell them, you know, if you can't just come to the group meetups and enjoy time together, then you're going to have to leave the group, because this isn't the place to have people sign petitions. And I think everybody in the group, including myself, agreed with the group leader, and I think she did the right thing, because really, like, being at a park, that's not the appropriate time to be signing petitions. I understand that the woman who had the petitions, you know, she wanted to let people know what was going on, and, you know, maybe she wanted to recruit people to her political views, but it just wasn't the right place. She thought it was the right place because she knew that there would be a lot of people there that she could talk to, but that's not what all the other parents and kids were there for. We're there for the kids. So just know that when you go into a group or a co-op, there may be people there trying to recruit you for their political gain. Like, they have an agenda. Not everybody's there for the kids. Just something to be aware of. It's not necessarily a red flag, like a bad red flag, but it can be annoying. So I hope that this video in some way helps you be aware of what's out there in terms of dangers for homeschooling. And I will see you in the next video. Stay safe out there.